Spy Family entered its latest season, honestly more quiet than I thought to be completely honest, but also as great as ever nevertheless. And I wanted to talk about it a little, but not the things that people normally talk about. I don't have to sit here and tell you that Anya is cute, Bond is awesome, and mommy is, whoa, god damn. I want to get a little bit more sophisticated, a bit more adulty, and learn about the politics involved in the show because I know the show and its world is way deeper than wakus and peanuts. But surprisingly, I couldn't find a single good video on this topic, so I thought, hey, I do YouTube, why don't I just make it? And so I did. Today, I'll be talking about the comprehensive politics of Spy Family. The politics of Spy Family is built upon a thick web of historical tensions, ideological differences, and unresolved conflicts that shape every aspect of the narrative, from being on the cusp of going to war to Anya and Bond's absolutely fucking adorable antics. Seriously, I want to just squeeze both of them. She's so small and he's so fluffy and I just want to... Sorry, lost my cool there. We are adults today. Subscribe for being adults. Although the series presents itself as a slice of life moe comedy, beneath its surface lies an intricately constructed geopolitical environment that mirrors some of the most defining conflicts of this very real world we live in. Understanding the politics of this world requires examining of the two central nations, Westalis and Ostania. But first, a little fun fact. Being heavily influenced by Cold War era Germany, the names of each nation also derive from fitting origins. The Ost in Ostania means East in German, and East Germany during that time was at war with Western Germany and the forces known as the West Allies, which could be the origin of the name Westalis. Or it could just be an arbitrary nation-sounding name with the word West in it, and I'm an ugly, disgusting dumbass and she doesn't like me back. Anyways, we must understand the ideological views of the East and West, and also how they grew apart, how their conflicts escalated into a devastating war, and how the aftermath of that war created systems of heavy surveillance, paranoia, and ideological extremism which often lead to terrible heinous acts. The resulting climate influences daily life for civilians and government pigs alike, creating a world where trust is dangerous, secrecy is normal, and the hope for peace dwindles and sometimes depends largely on individuals making the drastic decisions which they believe would save them. The political tensions are not abstract. They define the conditions that make Operation Strix necessary and give weight to Lloyd Forger's desperate attempts to maintain stability. Long before the story begins, the nations of Westalis and Ostania existed in relative equilibrium, and depending on how much Cold War era Germany has influenced the nations, they could have even been united at one point, but differences in ideology and philosophy gradually widened that gap between them. Westalis embraced democracy, openness, and pluralistic governance, while Ostania underwent a process of political hardening in which centralized authority, nationalism, and authoritarian control became dominant. In other words, they were straight up communists. Over time, these differences grew into a foundational divide. Ostania, fearing external influence and internal dissent, strengthened its surveillance and enforcement, which absolutely fucking sucks for the civilians, which we were shown throughout the series. The whole reason Yor felt the need to get a husband was because this problem persisted even after the armistice, and she felt the need to strengthen her facade of being a normal, politically insignificant woman in line with Ostania's views. Westalis, wary of authoritarian expansion, increased its intelligence activities and political countermeasures, which is why Lloyd Forger is on this operation to begin with. These shifting systems set the stage for escalating mistrust. Propaganda on both sides painted the other as dangerous, immoral, or destabilizing, conditioning citizens to see their rival as an imminent threat. Eventually, a combination of border disputes, political miscalculations, and ideological friction erupted into war. This was difficult for both parties and both sides suffered massive losses, but they managed to achieve a fragile peace for about a decade. Then, as the National Unity Party started its rise in power in Ostania, this peace dwindled. This faction was a very anti-Westalis party and was led by Donovan Desmond, who ultimately started the Second East-West War of Unification. The two wars between Westalis and Ostania were long and devastating, reshaping the psychological and political landscape of both nations. While the series doesn't give us dates or detailed battle descriptions, we still do see glimpses of the aftermath and even some specific characters' recounts of it. The war was shown and told to be brutal and widespread, leaving physical destruction and deep emotional scars. Cities were damaged, families were separated, and the economic system faltered under this strain. Though the war ultimately came to a ceasefire with the National Unity Party and Desmond falling out of power, neither side achieved a decisive victory and the conflict ended in a fragile ceasefire or armistice like the one North and South Korea have been in rather than solving the underlying problems. As a result, the war's end did not bring closure or reconciliation. Instead, it entrenched hostility and suspicion, leaving both nations convinced that the other could reignite conflict at any moment. As Ostania struggled with instability after the Second War, political factions emerged within the nation. Moderate factions believed that Ostania must maintain peace at all costs, recognizing that another war would decimate their already struggling society. Hardline factions, however, viewed the ceasefire as a humiliation and believed that Ostania should restore its former strength through nationalist revival and military resolve. An instance of someone from one of these hardline factions committing an extreme act was shown in the newest season's 4th episode, where someone from one of these factions attempts an assassination on a famous singer from Westalis, there for a cultural exchange program. This could potentially reignite hostility and cause conflict. And one of the more influential figures in this environment is Donovan Desmond, leader of the National Unity Party. Although we don't see or know too much about Desmond, his influence is felt everywhere. His ideology aligns with the hardliners, emphasizing national pride, suspicion of foreigners, and the need to restore Ostanian greatness. He is not merely a politician, but a symbol of the dreams and fears of those who believe Ostania must assert itself aggressively to survive. His political philosophy echoes real-world nationalist movements that gain traction during periods of instability. Basically, extreme authoritarianism. The extreme sense of pride and nationalism mixed with an absolute form of power is a huge part of things like communism and fascism. His ideology appeals to citizens resentful of economic hardship, political frustration, or perceived national decline. And this was all just the setting. What little we know about the background of the show. By the time the story of Spy Family actually begins, tensions between the two wars have escalated once again. Intel gathered by agencies such as Y suggests that Desmond or his allies might be orchestrating events that could shift their capricious dynamic. Because Desmond is highly reclusive, Westalis cannot monitor or influence him through normal processes such as having diplomatic discussions. This leads Wise to initiate Operation Strix, a covert mission intended to place an agent close enough to Desmond to predict or prevent dangerous political developments. The name of the operation itself is clearly an allusion to the Strix from Greek mythology, the bird that pretty much comes in your mouth. What a fitting name. Rather than using traditional espionage methods, Wise chooses a strategy rooted in the social structures of Ostania, infiltrating the elite educational institution where Desmond's children study. This approach also somewhat reveals how deeply the political conflict has penetrated civilian life. Even a prestigious school becomes a battleground for geopolitical influence. Children become tools for connections, social events become intelligence opportunities, and the family unit becomes a weapon in the war for peace. The creation of the Forger family is therefore not only a spy tactic or narrative tool for plot progression, but could symbolize how political conditions force individuals into artificial roles. Twilight, under the name Lloyd, must adopt an entirely new identity, forge a family, hence the name Forger, and position himself within an elite social sphere, all to fulfill a mission dictated by geopolitical instability and franticness. This necessity highlights the absurd lengths to which individuals must go in a world ruled by secrecy and mutual suspicion. Lloyd's past, having grown up all too familiar with the chaos and trauma of war, makes him personally attached to the cause to prevent future conflict. His belief in peace is not ideological or the moral truth as previously mentioned, but deeply personal, rooted in the suffering he experienced as a child. That emotional motivation stands in stark contrast to the cold political calculations of intelligence agencies and authoritarian leaders. His willingness to construct an entire false life in pursuit of peace shows how deeply politics and war can shape a person's identity. Even the most intimate aspects of life, marriage, parenthood, domestic routines, all become tools in a political fight. Your Briar represents a different side of political influence, the normalization of violence under authoritarian rule. At first glance, Yor is a timid, somewhat inept at literally everything, and socially awkward woman who works as a civil servant in a general government office. I don't think it was ever specified what, but that's not important. Beneath that adorable exterior, however, she is an assassin known as Ibarahime, or the Thorn Princess, working for a clandestine clandestine organization called the Garden. While the Garden is not officially tied to the Austinian government, its missions align with the state's interests, targeting individuals who threaten political stability or oppose the national ideology, which they deem as evil. I feel like they have to touch on this subject sometimes, and they kinda do already. Though Yor does the job as she needed to make money for her brother, she also started to genuinely believe that she was just taking out the trash, that she was making it a better world for the people she cares about. The series should further explore the idea that this isn't necessarily a good thing either. The people the Garden targets are often people who simply oppose Austinia's communist regime. Again, as a common theme for this story, it is a nuanced topic with much moral grayness. Yor's double life also demonstrates how authoritarian societies often rely on covert violence to maintain social order. Her fear of being suspected by the authorities if she remains unmarried reveals the extent to which the government imposes very traditional social norms as a form of political control. Yor's situation mirrors real-world experiences in societies where deviation from state-sanctioned norms raises red flags, prompting scrutiny or punishment. Thus, Yor's participation in a fake marriage is not only a plot device, but also a reflection of life under oppressive political regimes where personal choices cannot be separated from political expectations. Anya Forger, our very own peanut and spy-loving, carrot-hitting Esper, though a child and a source of gags, plays a crucial thematic role in illuminating the political climate of the story. Her telepathy allows her to witness the thoughts of those around her, revealing the layers of constant fear, anxiety, stress, and secrecy that permeate Austinian society. Anya's ability symbolizes the idea of understanding others, of empathy, something that is seemingly lost to the people who are all struggling on their own. Truly grasping the motivations, fears, and nuances within them is essential for breaking cycles of mistrust. Yet, ironically, Anya herself must hide her telepathy, fearing rejection or exploitation. This irony symbolizes the broader social environment where authenticity is dangerous and concealment becomes necessary. Anya's presence among the elite children at Eden Academy exposes her to the pressures placed on the next generation, as they are raised systematically not only for academic excellence, but for political and social roles predetermined by their heritage. Damien Desmond, the son of Donovan Desmond, is the clearest example. Even as a child, he bears the emotional burden of living in the shadow of a powerful political figure. His deep longing for his father's attention, paired with the fear of failing to meet expectations, illustrates the toll that political ambitions take on families and even children. His character highlights how political systems reproduce themselves through familial and educational systems, shaping the next generation and determining their fates long before they enter politics or are even born. The school the two of them attend, Eden Academy, the elite school for the elites, can even be called the classroom of the elites. No. Wait. But actually, maybe not, because Eden is similar to the school and classroom of the elite in many ways. Eden is central to Operation Strix and is a microcosm of Austinian society. On the surface, it's an institution dedicated to academic excellence and cultivating gifted students. However, its strict hierarchical system, intense disciplinary measures, and emphasis on producing future political, military, and economic leaders reveals its deeper purpose, reinforcing the existing social and political order. This darker motive directly contrasts its name, one that is synonymous with a paradise free of stress and anything dark. The school's merit system rewards stellas, which if you have 8 of, you receive the title of Imperial Scholar, one of the highest honors, and it punishes through Tonitrus bolts, which goes the opposite extreme and earns you immediate expulsion if you have 8 of. This system is just a smaller version of the broader authoritarian values of obedience, conformity, and rigid control. Only in the broader society, instead of 8 Tonitrus bolts, it is sometimes 1 strike, 1 minimal mistake, 1 report, or 1 small suspicion that earns you expulsion from life. Students who rise through the ranks gain social prestige and political access, while those who fall even slightly behind are marginalized. This is similar to real-world elite educational institutions in authoritarian societies, where schools function as breeding grounds for cultural indoctrination and the political coding of the minds of the future leaders. The people at Eden reinforce these values through ceremonial rituals, harsh punishments, and public evaluations, creating an atmosphere where even children learn to monitor their behavior carefully. The influence of politics extends far beyond institutions such as schools, shaping interpersonal relationships and even the dynamic within the Forger household. The entire family is built upon secrets, each member concealing vital truths for the sake of their survival and mission success. Lloyd cannot reveal his identity because doing so would jeopardize international stability or would straight up start a war and he could possibly die. Yor can't reveal her true identity because, well, if you know anything about back then, they liked executing people. A lot, so she could die. Anya can't reveal her telepathy for the fear of being treated as an anomaly, which she is deathly afraid of. And she probably can't die, so I can't say it 3 times for dramatic effect, but to a child like her, it may seem just as bad as actually dying, so my point still kinda stands. This shared secrecy ironically binds the family together, creating a genuine warmth and interdependence amid the deception. The political environment necessitates lies, but the resulting relationships reveal deeper truths about the human need for connection. The family symbolizes the possibility of trust emerging within a system designed to prevent it. Political tensions also influence secondary characters who interact with the Forgers. Yuri Breyer, Yor's brother, is a devoted member of the secret police, entirely indoctrinated into the ideology of the authoritarian state. His loyalty to the government is intertwined with his frankly weird love with his sister, creating internal contradictions that reflect the conflict between personal bonds and political duty. And of course, I have to say it again, he is a weird dude. But also, it is somewhat normal to be that weird if your life is made that bad from politics. His character demonstrates how oppressive systems manipulate individuals into equating loyalty to the state with virtue. Meanwhile, characters like Becky Blackbell demonstrate how social elites are trained from a young age to understand their privilege as a natural extension of national identity. Her upbringing reinforces the idea that certain families are destined to lead, echoing real-world class dynamics in societies with rigid hierarchies tied to political ideology. And before I get into the next section, I just really want to kindly ask you to subscribe and comment to boost engagement. Tell me your most controversial political... Nope, never mind. There's no way that could go well. Just tell me what the cutest moment that you liked in this series was or something. I worked extra hard on this video and it took a dumb amount of research, so if you think I deserve it, maybe subscribe and it would mean the world to me. Alright, on to the next section. The world of Spy Family is deeply rooted in real historical influences, particularly the Cold War. The most obvious parallel is a division between Westalis and Ostania, which closely mirrors the split between West and East Germany. Berlin, the capital of Ostania, resembles the real-world East Berlin, with its mix of imposing architecture, secret police presence, and societal tension. The SSS is clearly modeled after the Stasi, known for its vast network of informants, extensive surveillance operations, and culture of fear. Just like citizens of the German Democratic Republic, or East Germany, Ostanian citizens learn to conceal opinions that deviate from state ideology. The rivalry between Westalis and Ostania parallels the larger ideological clash between the United States and the Soviet Union, where espionage, propaganda, and political maneuvering dominated international relations. Wise's covert operations resemble those of real agencies such as M16 and the CIA, particularly in their use of undercover agents, manipulation of political actors, and reliance on morally questionable strategies to maintain geopolitical stability. These similarities ground the fictional world in recognizable historical patterns, giving the politics in the series a weird sense of verisimilitude. And the real-world influences are further evident in the depiction of how ordinary citizens navigate life under constant surveillance. In Ostania, even casual conversations can be dangerous if they do so much as hint at the criticism of the government or show sympathy towards Westalis. Neighbors report one another, coworkers maintain polite but guarded interactions, and social gatherings become spaces where individuals have to carefully curate their words to avoid suspicion. This environment is very much like the culture of fear established by many authoritarian regimes throughout the 20th century. From East Germany to the Soviet Union to various military dictatorships. The creators of Spy Family use these historical resonances to make even things like humor so much deeper, turning moments of paranoia or overreaction into comedic exaggerations that nevertheless speak to real human anxieties. The result is a fictional world that is not simply inspired by history, but engages with it thoughtfully, using wakus and peanuts to explore how people cope under oppressive political circumstances. And as I just mentioned, the comedic elements of the story carry weird amounts of weight. For instance, Lloyd's exaggerated efforts to appear as a perfect family man emphasize the absurdity of living under constant scrutiny. His attempts to present himself as an ideal citizen mirror the ways individuals in authoritarian societies perform loyalty to avoid suspicion. These performances often involve participating in state-sanctioned events, adopting patriotic rhetoric, or publicly supporting government initiatives regardless of personal convictions. A similar thing happens with Mommy as she wants to keep her job hidden at all costs and wants to stay with the family. Therefore, she tries to hide how inept and unusual she is, but the thing is, she never really had any guidance from parents which she lost during the war. This weird behavior of hers is funny and absolutely adorable, but also somewhat tragic. Look at Anya's antics in trying to do what she believes would save the world, and even her kind of being a dumb child. She is a dumb, innocent child who wouldn't normally want to study, but because she is at Eden, almost a battleground, funny things happen. But again, it's kinda sad that she has to worry about this stuff instead of normal kid stuff. She feels the need to worry about spy shit, world peace, and though she's pretty stupid so it ends up amounting to nothing, it makes sense that she is bad at this stuff. Because she shouldn't be. She is a literal child. And by framing such behavior comedically, Spy Family reveals the psychological strain of navigating environments where authenticity is risky. The humor allows readers to engage with heavy themes while still enjoying the lighthearted dynamics of the Forgers. Another theme that the show explores is the theme of manufactured enemies, a hallmark of politically divided societies. Westalis and Ostania maintain hostility not because of any immediate threat, but because their political identities rely on hating one another. Propaganda in both nations reinforces stereotypes about the other side, creating a self-perpetuating cycle of mistrust. This is very similar to real-world Cold War rhetorics in which the United States and the Soviet Union demonize each other through film, literature, education, and media. Citizens who grew up during the Cold War often internalize these narratives, perceiving the opposing side as inherently evil. In Spy Family, this dynamic is represented through characters like Yuri Breyer, who genuinely believes that Westalis threatens the well-being of Ostania, even though he has no direct experience with the country or its citizens. His unquestioning acceptance of the state's narrative reveals how political ideologies craft simplified versions of reality for public consumption. So, though he does some not-so-good things, it's hard to call the guy evil because he's still doing what he genuinely believes to be good. He genuinely believes that he is fighting off evil and making a safer world for the people he loves. Meanwhile, Lloyd's experiences as a spy and victim of war exposes what bullshittery these narratives are based on. He witnesses firsthand that individuals on both sides share similar desires for safety, stability, and peace, as was shown in his backstory in the new season. The series also sheds light on how class intersects with political power. Eden Academy represents an elite tier of society that is largely insulated from the hardships faced by ordinary citizens. Children who enroll in the school are constructed to assume influential roles in government, industry, and the military. Their families often wield substantial political influence, reinforcing a system in which privilege and power are inherited rather than earned. This choice was likely influenced by real-world political structures in which elite institutions produce future leaders who perpetuate the same systems of governance and ideology. The meticulous emphasis on appearance, conduct, and tradition within Eden Academy underscores the idea that political power is wrapped in rituals that legitimize inequality. Students like Damien Desmond are positioned as future political figures long before they are old enough to understand the implications of such roles, highlighting how political hierarchies are reproduced through education and socialization. And that puts a lot of pressure on the kids. Though he pretty much has a guaranteed successful future, he still stresses about keeping this perfect image, and mind you, he's like 7. When kids are 7 years old, they should be worrying about Roblox, K-pop demon hunters, and Italian brain rot, not the communist regime or being the perfect successor of it. So it would be wrong to say that only citizens of lower class struggle, because life kinda sucks for the bourgeoisie too. So looking at these authoritarian regimes throughout history, it can be said that pretty much no one is happy. But of course, you can argue that in an ideal world where everything goes perfectly, communism can work well with an equal wealth distribution, no inequality, and more, which many communist leaders use as an excuse, but time and time again, this pretty much never ends up working. And many leaders say this kind of shit, which brings us back to propaganda and misinformation. Characters in Ostania are frequently exposed to state messaging that portrays Westalis as a treacherous, immoral nation seeking to destabilize their homeland. Meanwhile, Westalis uses its own propaganda to justify espionage missions and maintain public support for its foreign policies. The mutual distrust fueled by these narratives is similar to real-world information warfare, where governments manipulate media to control public perception. The emphasis on controlling narratives highlights the vulnerability of citizens who lack access to independent information sources. This was explored in an exchange between Frankie and Lloyd when they first met.
そんなのはお前らに都合のいいプロパガンダだろ。
ああ、分かってる。けど真実なんて俺ら一平卒には知りようねえんだよ。
This exchange was just potent in general. It shows what each party in the war is thinking, how the soldiers are brainwashed, and how that makes them genuinely hate each other. Lloyd doesn't really care for his country as much as he hates the enemies who have taken everything from him. And naturally, the people and soldiers of Ostania also think that way, and this shit happens in real life. The government can and does alter the truth and changes what the public knows, and the series reveals the dangers of that. And though propaganda, manufactured enemies, and the cycle of hatred are huge parts of the narrative, the show also explores the potential for empathy to transcend all that. Anya's telepathy plays a crucial symbolic role here, as it allows her to perceive the hidden fears and hopes of those around her. Her perspective reveals that people labeled as enemies often want the same things: to protect their families, to be understood, to live without fear. This emphasis on shared humanity counters the ideological narratives that depict opposing sides as irredeemably different. The story suggests that peace is possible not through grand political gestures, but through small acts of understanding between individuals. Lloyd, Yor, and Anya each contribute to this theme by forming genuine emotional bonds despite the secrets that initially bring them together. Their relationships challenge the ideological barriers imposed by their governments, demonstrating that personal connections can undermine politics. And throughout this whole video so far, I've been kinda saying how authoritarian regimes suck for the people. But Spy Family doesn't only criticize these societies, it also critiques the assumptions and practices of liberal democratic states. Westalis, though depicted as more progressive than Ostania, still relies on covert operations and political manipulation. Wise's actions reveal that even nations claiming to champion freedom engage in morally gray activities to protect national interests. And of course, this shit happens IRL. Specifically, Western intelligence agencies historically have intervened in foreign governments, supported coups, or engaged in mass surveillance. By presenting both Westalis and Ostania as flawed, the series avoids portraying politics as a simple battle between good and evil. Instead, it suggests that pretty much everyone fucking sucks. And the reason they suck is because political systems, regardless of ideology, often compromise ethical principles in pursuit of stability and power. And the ideologies of the West, again, aren't the objective moral truth. And if you sway too far to one side and become radical, you have things like terrorism. That is what the Red Circus group did, the group that hijacked the bus Anya was on. Those guys were from Westalis, but they were just trying to wrong the country that wronged them, and they went too far and took it out on children. So honestly, both sides are bad and people on both sides were harmed. And I can't emphasize this enough, the act of espionage is not good. This is the primary bad thing Westalis does. Espionage is often romanticized in fiction, for a good damn reason, because Lloyd, James Bond, and so many other spies are sick as shit, but espionage is not really a good thing. Spy Family presents it as a morally ambiguous necessity in a world dominated by ideological rivalry. Lloyd constantly questions whether his actions truly promote peace or merely continue cycles of deception. His internal conflicts reflect real debates during the Cold War, when intelligence agencies justified ethically questionable operations such as coups, propaganda campaigns, psychological warfare, all in the name of national security. The series uses Lloyd's moral dilemmas to highlight the human cost of espionage. He forms genuine bonds with Yor and Anya, yet must remain some distance to fulfill his mission. This tension underscores the personal sacrifices demanded by political conflicts, showing how individuals become pawns in larger ideological struggles. And let's also talk a bit about money, because money talks. Money is a huge part of government and politics, and it likewise plays a part in the world of Spy Family. The influence of politics is further shown through the economic conditions within Ostania and Westalis. Ostania displays economic inequality that hints at the after effects of prolonged political instability. Neighborhoods vary dramatically in wealth and quality of life, suggesting that the ruling regime prioritizes ideological enforcement over economic development. After all, you can't focus on both. This is similar to what was happening east of the Berlin Wall. In East Germany, the government invested heavily in surveillance and military programs, often at the expense of consumer goods, housing quality, and living standards. Similarly, the selective prosperity of certain Austenian elites suggests a system where political loyalty grants economic privilege. Characters such as Melinda Desmond and the families of Eden Academy students represent this privileged class, whose economic comfort contrasts sharply with the fear-laden environment in which ordinary citizens live. Their lifestyle underscores the reality that authoritarian regimes often create stark divides between those who benefit from the system and those who suffer under it. Meanwhile, Westalis, though depicted as more economically stable, shows signs of internal political tension as well. Wise's anxiety about Donovan Desmond's potential for starting a war reflects the fragility of international peace, even for nations that appear outwardly prosperous. It also highlights how economic power does not necessarily guarantee internal unity. Western democracies during the Cold War faced their own struggles with political polarization, anti-war movements, and debates over foreign intervention. By incorporating these dynamics into Westalis, Spy Family avoids idealizing one side of the ideological divide. Instead, it demonstrates that things like war or politics affects more than just authoritarians. And as the series progresses, it becomes clear that Spy Family is not simply a story about spies, assassins, or espers. The Forger's everyday struggles, helping Anya with homework, maintaining appearances at Eden Academy, navigating workplace challenges, all have to do with the grand theme and central focus of this show: politics. It shows how politics and conflicts between powers too great for any individual person sucks fuck for pretty much everyone involved. People have to spy, people can't be trusted, children have to act differently and are often stripped of their childhood, people have to live in poverty and in fear, people have to turn to terrorism, people suffer. But I love that despite all this, the series leaves us with a pretty positive note. The show suggests that if individuals can form genuine connections despite their differences, nations too can overcome ideological divides, with our adorable Anya being at the center of this idea. The political landscape of Spy Family is deeply informed by the failures and hopes of the 20th century. The Cold War's legacy of division, surveillance, propaganda, and fear permeates every aspect of the story, yet the series also draws from post-Cold War optimism, portraying characters who defy the rules assigned to them by their governments. Yor's kindness challenges the expectation that an assassin must be emotionless. Lloyd's compassion complicates his role as a spy trained to manipulate. Anya's innocence disrupts the careful calculations of adults around her. Together, the Forgers demonstrate that political identities can be transcended by human connection. The story ultimately argues that while political systems shape individuals in profound ways, they do not fully define them. People can choose to form bonds, challenge narratives, and imagine futures not dictated by fear. This vision of hope does not diminish the seriousness of the political issues at the heart of the series. Instead, it undermines the idea that peace is a fragile, ongoing effort requiring both structural change and personal growth. The Forger's story suggests that even in a world dominated by surveillance, authoritarianism, and geopolitical rivalry, the smallest gestures of trust can ripple outwards, challenging the systems designed to keep people apart. Through its blend of humor, action, and emotional depth, Spy Family presents a nuanced examination of politics that draws from real history while offering a vision of how ordinary people can resist the forces that seek to divide them. And to slowly end this video, I want to tell you a little quote. "The world is an insanely huge onion." This original quote from the 40th episode of the series is about how the world is shrouded in several layers of lies and that it is impossible to find the truth without shedding tears. But I have a more positive interpretation of this metaphor that the world is an onion. First off, I think the series of Spy Family resembles an onion because just how many layers there are with the facade of being a family comedy. But more importantly, I think the world is like an onion because though it is always covered in layers of darkness, lies, war, and struggle, there will always be hope and a cute little girl doing cute things somewhere that can act as a little bit of solace. My name is NoahBoahCoah, and because this video still isn't nearly political enough, I'll say it. You gotta have them ribs, and pussy too. And thank you for watching.